Okay, so can you see my screen okay?
Yes, we can. Thank you.
Perfect. Right. Good afternoon from Brisbane, Australia. My talk today is Do You Feel the Need for Speed? So, as Fee mentioned, I'm Kris Curtis, a Global BI Director at JLL. So, just a little bit about me. I'm originally from Brisbane. I moved to London in 2006. After 15 years in the UK, my wife and I decided to relocate back to Brisbane with our young family. I've been lucky enough to work for a variety of organizations, each at very different stages of business growth and data maturity. And this has helped me gain an understanding of how data could and should be used within these organizations. As mentioned, I'm currently working at JLL, and the primary purpose of my role is to focus on how our team use the tools that enable our analytical capability. So making sure that we're using these tools in a responsible manner to drive value through efficiency. And we can do this in three different ways. We can protect our existing assets and the resources that are used for BI and analytics, such as Tableau, Alteryx, all these type of different servers. We do a lot of innovation, discovering new platforms, promoting different techniques or processes, and solutions from subject matter experts in the wider community. And finally, we partner with our IT platform owners to collaborate and make sure that the needs of our BI teams are met. So I feel the need for speed. I don't have a flight suit, and I'm definitely going to swap my aviators for my real glasses so I can actually see. And this famous quote from Maverick in the movie Top Gun is really what I'm here to talk to you about today. We will cover three main points related to Tableau performance tuning: how to measure performance, tips to tune up your dashboards and improve performance, and hopefully setting you up for a win to take the checkered flag by highlighting the benefits of why this is an important topic. So, research by the Nielsen Norman Group on website response times concluded that slow page rendering is typically caused by server delays or overly fancy page widgets. And when you consider how users engage with Tableau server, it's my belief that we can reach the same sort of conclusions. The main thing is clear though: people hate waiting. Slow traffic lights, queues, websites, databases, and yes, dashboards. A 10-second delay will often make users leave a site immediately. There's two reasons why speed is important to us. The first is if we must wait, our minds are limited. We lack the control to keep focus and we become distracted. And this can result in both the loss of attention and forgetting things that are stored in our short-term memory. The second reason is that we require control over outcomes rather than being dependent on a computer. When we're made to wait, we perceive this service that's being provided as arrogant or incompetent. Response times can be broken down into 0.1 second. This gives the feeling of an instantaneous response. 1 second, and though the thought flow is seamless, there's a sense of a delay, but we still feel in control. And between 1 and 10 seconds, we start thinking about other things, and it's difficult to get our brain back on track once that page loads. So before I jump into the tips on how to make your dashboard faster, I wanted to give a high-level overview of what happens when a user clicks on your dashboard on Tableau server. And one of the best ways I've seen this very complex process explained is in the joint Tableau and Interworks white paper called Designing Efficient Production Dashboards by Ben Busulai. There's a series of steps which are executed when the user makes that initial request that has a direct impact on performance. And this can be broken down into 4 performance factors: layout, query, calculations, and rendering. So what happens when a user clicks on a dashboard and triggers that initial request? The next step is Tableau starts to create the layout of the worksheets used to create the dashboard. The number and design of the worksheets used on the dashboard has a direct impact on layout computation. And this is where Tableau's VizQL server starts going to work. Things that can contribute to a longer processing time for layouts is a lot of these different elements have a processing cost. So dashboards with lots of elements, containers, worksheets, filters, and other features, workbooks with lots of dashboards, large images, multiple layouts, think devices like phones, tablets, data sources with lots of different fields, high cardinality fields used for color or filters. What this means is dimension fields with a variety of options. So an example could be the 50 US states. Once this is started, sent to Tableau, Tableau starts building the query and it transmits the query to the database or the data source. And this is why a Tableau extract can be faster. It goes without saying, the more data that you are returning, the longer this will take. A data source filter applied for the date range only to return the relevant information used within your workbooks can really help. So once that data is transmitted to Tableau, any calculations are then generated. And be aware that lots of calculations within Tableau can impact computation time. And finally, we get to rendering. Charts with high mark counts, marks displayed as shapes, especially custom shapes, and tables with lots of cells and maps also create additional performance loads at this stage. So it's all about speed, hot, nasty, badass speed. Ricky Bobby, Talladega Nights. Now that we've had a quick introduction to the process which takes place for a Tableau workbook to load on the server, we now need to set that qualifying time. In order to make these improvements, we first need to know how long it takes for a dashboard to load in the first place. We can measure performance using one of three ways: stats for load times, performance recording, and workbook performance metrics. So out of these three, not one of them really stands out as the perfect way to understand dashboard performance. Each resource has its limits, so I'll briefly explain each one and identify the strengths and their limitations. Stats for load times. Now, this is the most logical and, in my mind, the easiest way to understand how the workbook is loading for users. What is this? This is a Tableau server Postgres report. It displays the total load time at a view level. Each dot represents a session ID or a load of a view over a specified time period. Now, why is this useful? Well, it can show you exactly how long a view in each workbook takes to load from the actual stats captured by users clicking on the view. You can get the average, which factors in loading times during busy periods. And for example, if your server is across different time zones. The limitations with this is that the actual report is part of the site administrator reports. So unless you have the site admin permissions, you can't actually see this and then understand the results of those workbook load times. It also only shows load times for dashboards which are published onto the server, which are then clicked on by users. So if you publish a workbook, but no one clicks on it, you won't be able to see any data for it. Performance recording. So what is this? This is the Tableau desktop inbuilt resource for capturing the amount of time each event takes to execute. So why is this one useful? Well, it breaks down all the performance factors we discussed earlier: layout, query, calculations, and rendering. So you can identify any of these which are causing much longer processing time that impact the overall performance. And this is within Tableau Desktop, so it's not the full experience of how the server would need to transfer data across networks and how an end user would experience these times. Interpreting performance recording is also a challenge, and it's quite daunting for users. I know I still struggle to process everything that this is showing to me. and workbook performance metrics. And what is this? Well, this is essentially Tableau Desktop Performance Recorder, but it's able to do the performance recording on the dashboard while it's on the Tableau server. Why is this useful? Well, it gives a more accurate breakdown of performance factors for how an end user would experience them. The limitations for this is that it's a feature which needs to be enabled by a Tableau server admin at the site level. And it involves some very fiddly inserting of a text string into the URL of the Tableau workbook loaded. So you can see there that it needs to insert the record performance equals yes in that workbook view. At the same time, you also need the Tableau server admin to click that little box there that says record workbook performance metrics. Also, interpreting the performance recording information is still a challenge. It's not really that user-friendly. Slow and steady wins the race. False. Fast always wins the race. Dwight K. Schrute from The Office. So, using one of those resources, you can get a better understanding of your dashboard. I would also strongly recommend just publishing the dashboard onto a test or dev Tableau server environment and simply click on it and just watch it load. See how long your new dashboard takes to load. Are you experiencing the circle of death? If you feel your performance is okay, check back after a few days, weeks, and even months. Speak to your stakeholders, listen to their feedback. Has anyone mentioned slow loading? If they are asking for changes to be made, make sure you check to see if those changes will impact the current performance. I'm so fast that last night I turned off the light switch in my hotel room and I was in bed before the room was dark. Muhammad Ali. At JLL, we put together a performance checklist. We pay lots of attention to the look and the design of our dashboards, but we also want to make sure that our end users are getting a good experience engaging with our data. This guide is used to help break down these performance factors and suggestions which can be applied to improve performance. In no particular order, here's just some of those suggestions. The first one, remove unused data sources. If they're not used in your workbook, close them, delete them, just get rid of them. These create additional loads when processing for no purpose. Remove unused worksheets. Sometimes it's nice to keep a few different charts hidden away in the workbooks. They stay hidden just in case, but they still contribute to overall workbook size and compute when processing the workbook. Hide unused fields. You'd be surprised at how often extracts are created from data sources, but we actually only need a portion of the fields included. If a data source has 40 columns and all your charts are only using 10 or 15 of these, then the other fields are still being extracted and processed when Tableau is executing queries and building calculations. If you hide these unused fields and then create your extract, it lightens the load. Reduce data volume. How much historic data do you need? It does depend on the brief, but if your data source continues to grow, it will eventually take longer and longer to extract and process when loading views. Applying a data source filter can keep the data within a relevant time period, such as the last 24 months, even if it's 1 or 2 years later. So you're still only bringing 24 months of data into your workbook, not 48 months worth of data. Number 5, build complex metrics or transformations upstream. Tableau is great at visualizing data, but it isn't great at processing large volumes of data to then create drastically different fields using multiple formulas or calculations. Sure, it's possible, but it all comes at a performance cost. Leverage the performance of your database or dedicated data transformation tools like Alteryx or Tableau Prep to shape your data the way that you need it for Tableau to visualize it. Number 6, use native functions like sets, groups, hierarchy, and aliases, instead of creating calculated fields, which essentially do the same thing. It can be easy to build some case statements in Tableau to create groups, but again, doing this rather than using the native group function will create an additional load on processing. Use the most frequent outcome for if statements. So if you do need to create an if statement, start with the condition which is more likely to be met first. This means each record doesn't have to go through every iteration of the formula to be validated. If it meets the criteria on the first condition, it will move on to the next. Number 8, reduce the number of filters in use. More filters equals more complex queries. More complex queries means longer time is taken to compile and execute the query. Number 9, use action filters. This reduces query load and aligns to Tableau's concept of guided analytics. The filter is only applied when the action is selected. Number 10, limit the number of views per dashboard. Each additional visualization added to a dashboard increases the number of queries executed and the marks rendered. If you have more than 5 visuals or worksheets on a dashboard, start to consider how these could be split up for analysis. And last one, avoid high mark counts. It might be cool to create a jitter plot for all 100,000 orders, but Tableau is not thanking you. Aggregations viewed as bars are far more efficient than multiple marks being rendered to represent each unique ID. I am fast. To give you a reference point, I'm somewhere between a snake and a mongoose and a panther. Dwight K. Schrute, The Office. Applying just a handful of those tips will increase the speed of your dashboard, but there's plenty more tips out there. One of the most exciting things recently released has been the Tableau Optimizer feature, available in desktop version 2022.1. You can run this before you publish to server. It checks for these best practices I've listed and identifies what should be applied to improve workbook performance. This takes a lot of the hard work out of optimizing. Simply click on each of the items flagged and expand for more information. This really is a game changer in terms of pre-publishing to Tableau server. I hope people are already using this feature if they are on the compatible desktop versions. Paying attention to Tableau workbooks is not just a tick box exercise. There are genuine benefits and value which can be achieved. Increased productivity and satisfaction. You can extrapolate how much time is saved for users waiting for dashboard loads, reducing load time by as little as 5 seconds, and by how many users view that dashboard per month. All of this time saved can be shared with the business's cost saving, improving productivity. Also, just telling this good news story that we optimize a dashboard to load 10 seconds faster shows the stakeholders that you really care about their experience. And some companies perform NPS surveys to track this type of satisfaction. Cost reduction. More efficient dashboards result in less processing for Tableau server. This means faster extracts and reduces the need to upgrade Tableau server infrastructure. This is expensive, so your IT team will love you and your other colleagues will get their extract refreshes completed on time. Win-win. The other way that we are managing costs is that we're starting to move away from traditional databases to cloud usage models. And this might mean a change to a pay-per-query model. This does mean that faster queries and dashboards, but we are paying for that processing power. So the more efficient your data source and Tableau workbooks are, the more ability you have to help control these costs. And finally, minimizing risk. Disaster recovery. This is probably more aimed at the sort of IT folks out there, but having an understanding that the more efficient a Tableau workbook is can drastically reduce the size of the file. Reducing file sizes of Tableau workbooks published onto a Tableau server can really help the Tableau server backup. In large organizations, this is crucial if there's a disaster and a Tableau server needs to be recovered. The quicker it is back online, the less risk of operating with no data informing decisions. So I want to thank you for listening to my Tableau Fringe Festival presentation. I hope that it's helped you inform about why speed is important for your dashboards, how to measure performance, some tips to tune up your dashboards and improve performance, and why this type of activity is important for you and your team. I'll leave you with just one more quote, which is a more serious one. Speed is a byproduct of good, slow practice. So Guthrie Govan isn't a name that many people might know, unless you're a full-on music fan. He's considered probably the greatest modern guitarist. I strongly recommend checking out some of his YouTube clips. The reason why I love this quote is that when you consider any skill, and specifically why we're all here in reference to Tableau, making Tableau look good or run fast takes time. It's not something that you can just do once or twice and expect amazing results. It's about pushing yourself to get to the top of your game. Thank you for listening.